Hi everyone, before we go into the podcast, I just wanted to say thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I'm super grateful for your continued loyalty and support. If you could do me a quick favour, if you could give me a review on Apple Podcasts, it really helps the algorithm and it will help this podcast go up the lists. If there are any subjects or topics that you want me to cover, then please do reach out to me on DM on LinkedIn and I will do my best to find the best guest for that subject or topic. This is the Absolute Business Mindset podcast, created and hosted by Mark Hayward. This podcast will interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and people in their careers. We will delve into their journey to success, key life milestones, and go deep into their area of expertise. This podcast will inspire and educate with great guests. Today, we have Kevin Whelan, who is a wealth mentor, SaaS expert, author, and podcaster. Hello, Kevin. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. And what an introduction. Thank you very much for that indeed. I didn't know I was all of those things.
Well, that's what I've researched. So we'll hopefully be touching all of those points as well in this conversation. So first of all, just thank you for joining me today. So let's start with your education. So you did a degree in economics at the University of Leeds. Why did you choose economics?
That's a great question, and I'll tell you what it was. I was inspired by a teacher who wrote a little book, and I really enjoyed the subject, and he kind of kept me going. Right. And I thought, this is my favorite subject. So because it was my favorite subject, and I did it at GCSE. By the way, I've got probably the weirdest GCSE, O-levels as they were called then, that I think anybody's got. It's in surveying.
Sorry, what have you got?
An O-level in surveying.
Surveying?
Surveying, yeah.
Wow.
So measuring height, measuring distances, getting dumpy levels out. It's interesting because my youngest son is now a surveyor, but had nothing to do with my O-level. But yeah, so because I enjoyed it so much, I carried on at A-level, and then there wasn't another alternative for me, although I did do a subsidiary in French because I love France. I love the language. I love the food. I particularly love the wine. So that's a fascination for me. And I try and get to France as often as I can just to keep practicing the language. So I kind of speak the language of wealth, and I speak a bit of French, but definitely my wealth language is better than my French.
Okay, fantastic. So what was the name of the teacher? Let's give him a little bit of a shout out.
Oh, well, he'd be dead by now.
He'd be past now, yeah.
Well, yeah, but his name was Philip Selby.
Right, fantastic.
Yeah.
And so did you find that economics suited your sort of personality, or your because a lot of the people that I've interviewed talk about their degrees, they talk about a passion, which you have, and an interest. But it seems to me that your economics degree has actually infiltrated a lot of your career and a lot of because you've all stayed in the same sort of finance sort of arena.
Yeah, completely. It's been an area of fascination forever, and it's continued from a very young age. And, I suppose deep down, as I think about it now, reflecting on, I knew you were going to ask me some interesting questions. I thought probably when I went to university and got my degree in economics, I thought, I think I fancy being an economics lecturer.
Okay.
I fancied the idea of education. But, in my sandwich course, I worked for banks, Barclays Bank and Yorkshire Bank. And what I definitely wasn't was a banker.
Okay.
I was definitely not destined to be a banker at all. I just didn't like the environment, didn't like it. And I thought, well, maybe it's just me. The environment of working in offices just didn't suit me at all. And I found myself just being almost unemployable, that I can't be told what to do. I'm a bit of a control freak. And people telling me what to do doesn't go down well. So in the end, I'm a wealth teacher. I'm a teacher now, and I'm proud and passionate about being a teacher. But I kind of teach grown-ups. I don't teach kids.
Yeah.
Although, having said that, I will be. More on that if you ask me. There's a new version of our work coming out called Wealth Builders for Teens.
Okay, interesting.
Which is to try and encourage more engagement, conversation, involvement of kids with financial matters. I don't mean teach them like, what's an interest rate? What does APR mean? Not like an academic subject.
Yeah.
but more in terms of the gradual involvement of parents with their children, because I believe very powerfully that the legacy that we give to the next generation is what we leave within them, not what we give to them in terms of on our death. So part of what I do now is, as I'm getting older and wiser, I've got this wizened expression on my face all the time. I'm looking to help the current generation to become kind of pioneers of their own wealth journey for their families, and then to keep that journey going on for the next generation and the next generation and the generation after that. So it's a really powerful, important thing, this teaching, because I think money with no wisdom is just a waste of money. The money will dissipate, and that's history. But money with wisdom perpetuates and enriches, and that's what I'm about.
So something I've been thinking about for a while, and it's not necessarily an original thought, but at schools there is just no teaching about money and about personal finance and how to, as you say, create wealth. And I've had this conversation with a couple of sort of teachers, and they said, well, we can't do everything. Some things have to be done by the parents. Which I kind of get. I kind of get that parents have to influence their children, but I kind of feel they're copping out a little bit, that they're not encouraging people to think about financial independence. We'll talk a lot about financial independence later on, but about wealth creation and education about money. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, I completely couldn't agree with you more. In fact, one of the co-conspirators, and I'm a great believer in collaboration as well, with Wealth Builders for Teens is a teacher.
Right.
The current teacher currently in the profession, saying there's not enough education about financial literacy in schools, and the schools don't want to do it. There's just no money for it. There's no skill for it. I mean, the teachers themselves, God bless them, it's a hard enough job as it is, but most of them, in fact, if you think about it logically now, they trade time for money forever.
Yeah.
They get, a pension at retirement, and which is usually a percentage of what they were on before they were teaching, and their life is compromised. They have less income than they had before, and therefore wealth is not in their DNA. So consequently, they're not the right people to teach it.
Yeah.
And you can't delegate this to a school system, I don't think. That's why I believe that we're trying to be part of that new generation of education that comes from within the parents, who then accept the responsibility of being the teachers. So it doesn't come naturally to parents either, because 95% of the population do not become financial independent. So there's no lesson for them to pass on, because they didn't learn any of themselves.
Yeah.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hi, I'm Alex, the host of X Health Show. Meet the future of healthcare. Think X-Men, that's X Health. Actual superheroes behind programming living cells to cure cancer once and for all. Tech that detects preterm delivery in seconds, brain-computer interface, or apps that employ AI to match you, your disease, with the best treatment. X Health Show brings to you visionaries who push the boundaries of healthcare from Switzerland, the heart of Europe and the most innovative country in the world. Let me introduce you to their startups. Head to X Health Show, meet the future of healthcare. Happy to greet you there.
I think that's really important. I think that's a great cause that you're doing there. So when I first met you, you did a presentation on a group that I'm in, and you said that it's important about crafting stories and building stories in your life, in conversations, in relationships. So maybe in a couple of sentences, bit of a challenge for you. How would you craft your story? How would you describe your story?
Well, I'd say the story that I have now is one of somebody who's kind of like the Dumbledore or the Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm the sage person who directs people in a very kind of calm and karma-driven way to help them see things they don't see for themselves, to help accelerate them to wealth. But that's what I am now. Where I came from, my story is about tragedy. Stories, my dad, who died at 46, North Sea oil rig worker, had a little business, recruiting people as engineers and so on. So he was an agent, and the oil companies used to pay him to find the staff to do the work. And he was doing rather well. Had a business. I remember him coming to me one day showing me that he had a certificate of incorporation, at 14 years of age or whatever I was at the time. I don't know what a certificate of incorporation was. I do now. Yeah. He had a limited company. I remember the name of it, which was ISL Limited, which is no longer on the records, actually. I was hoping I could find it, recover it and keep it, but I can't. But anyway, he died, and the tragedy of that affected me a few years later. I was 25 when he died. And I just was getting married in 89. And I kind of worked out that if I do what I'm doing as a young economist, I'm not going to save enough money. I'm not going to be able to be wealthy enough to leave a legacy to my wife-to-be and the children I'd yet to have. I've now got 3 grown-up kids, and you can tell by the face I'm past 45. And I set a sort of a target without the real ambition of how to do it. But I had to be financially independent, completely financially independent, which meant I could own things that would pay me money. So if I wasn't around, the money would continue to flow. And that was my journey. So as a journey of self-discovery with no trodden paths, no guides, no mentors, no books, no courses, nothing. That's what I did. I set off on that journey with the permission of my wife and said, look, I'm going to have to take some risks here, but I'd rather take them now before we get caught up in the rat race. And I think that's what was fortunate for me. So I was able to dedicate from pretty much from age 30 to my age now, continued, and my whole life has been about building assets and about building wealth. And it takes time to learn these things. It isn't something you can do quickly. But now I know what I know, I can teach people to become completely financially independent in about 5 years.
Right.
So 5 years of hard work, discipline, focus, and getting out of your comfort zone can replace 40 years of working, in a normal profession. Then you get a half or 2/3 of your income in retirement. I can teach people how to be completely financially independent in 5 years. And for the most part, that's what I do. So I have a business that does that. So I didn't have it then, going back then I didn't, but now I do. And my journey is enshrined in my IP, or intellectual property, which is now taught to hundreds of people. And my ambition, I'm from Newcastle upon Tyne originally. The accent has dulled over the years. So I sort of lived in Newcastle, moved south to Leeds University, then ended up in London, and I've been here ever since. But my ambition, and still fires me up to this day, is to, through my knowledge, through the free resources I give so much willingly for free, because I just want to get people wealthy. That's it. 50,000 people I would like to get to financial independence. And the reason it's 50,000, because I imagine 50,000 people in St. James's Park football stadium, all doing wealth builders. They've become financially independent, and seriously, they are wealthy. They are independent from the government. They are independent from Brexit. They're independent in the pandemic. They are financially free for the rest of their lives to do what they want. And I imagine them infecting the rest of the population with a positive pandemic of good news and inspiration, like I'm trying to do now, to get people to think differently and to become financially independent. And I think that's what I want to do. Now, if I die before that happens, there are other people who are fired up to carry on that journey with my team. So that's what I'm about, trying to get people fired up. So, if they're ready, 5 years, they'll make it.
Amazing. All right, we're going to talk a lot about wealth builders, but before we get there, I want to talk about, you spent 32 years at Knightswood Law Partnership Limited. So what did you do there?
Well, it's Kingswood Law.
Sorry, Kingswood.
That's important. No, but what I did was, the first thing I did when I decided to become financially independent is to train myself in financial stuff, because I thought, if I'm going to teach, if I'm going to make a living, do it in stuff you love. So I did finance. So I was trained by Legal and General at the time, and that was in 88, 89. And then I created my own business in around about the end of 89, beginning of 90. And I called it Kingswood Law. And the reason I called it Kingswood Law was, well, Kingswood sounded nice. KW is Kevin Whelan. That sounded all right, but I didn't want my name in it. And law is I discovered that the best way to help people financially is to find things they hate. That's what I did. What do people hate? And then take care of that shit. What do people hate to do? And they hated, there were two things I learned really well and really quickly was they didn't like doing wills.
Okay.
And they still don't.
No.
So I thought, right, okay, I'll learn to be, so I was learning to be a financial advisor with Legal & General, and I learned to be a will writer. And I did wills for free. So I could find the financial facts out about people and help them put their finances in order.
Right.
And it worked really, really well. And then, so that's why I called the company Kingswood Law, and I've owned that company ever since. So it's not that I've worked there. I've had that company for over 30 years, but I don't do anything in the company now.
So it's completely out. Like you've got a team that does everything.
Yeah, I've got. It's been essentially somebody else is managing that company. And for me, what's interesting for me, and it's not at all being negative about the people doing it, they're doing a great job, is I just get sent a royalty check every month. And I've been receiving a royalty check for, best part of 20 years. So, that's not doing any work, but getting paid. And that was one of the objectives that I set. So that business continues to thrive for somebody else, but I just get sent a check every month. And that check is enough to make anybody financially independent on its own. But that's not where the journey ended. I just kept doing that.
Absolutely. There's still a lot to cover. Interestingly, though, for Kingswood, I'm just thinking that transition away from the company and then creating Wealth Builders. What was that like your last day when you were signing off and you've handed everything over? Was it a sentimental time? Was it a time of change? Did you feel there was a passing of the guard, or was it the right time?
No, it was all about the right time. I wanted to move on. Somebody else wanted to look after the business. The people there were happy doing what they were doing. I wasn't adding any value. So the next thing I did was created. Just rewind back. So one of the things I agreed with my wife was that I would never put any mortgage on the house we lived in. So we bought the house we live in now. We way back then, still been living here. It's a very nice house in Surrey. And so I had a mortgage at the time and I paid it off in 7 years and said, right, people don't like mortgages. What if I write a book that teaches people how to pay off their mortgage in 7 years? So I did that. And that book's called Save a Fortune. And anybody who's listening to this, if they mention your name or mention the podcast, I'll send them a copy for free. And that what that does is it's kind of, for somebody who doesn't want to focus on their whole wealth, and I think it's better to do the whole thing than it is to be myopic. It's much better to take a full view than take a narrow view. But I understand some people only have time for a narrow view, or they're quite comfortable being in employment all of their life and rely on the pension if the mortgage is gone. So that book did well, and I created a business around that book, which was called Debt Free Day. The business didn't work, and I learned a lesson there. And the business didn't work because it started to attract people deeply in debt. And I didn't want to have a debt counseling business, and I didn't want to focus my life on people deeply in debt that they were struggling. It wasn't a way for me to get the most out of myself. And people didn't need teaching; they needed saving. They needed a lifeline from drowning. That wasn't a very nice place to be. But I could see that's where the business was taking me. So we just closed that business. And then from there, I created an IFA, which I still have to this day, called Kingswood Law IFA. So you see the theme going back to Kingswood Law, and that business is thriving and it's doing well. I've got a team of people who run that business, and it serves people who need, the kind of regulated advice that people need with their pension and their investments and inheritance and all the things that good financial advisors do. And I'm a qualified IFA myself, so I have the license, I have the the certificates and I have the appropriate qualification to be able to do that work. I don't do that work. I choose not to do that work, but I have the qualification to do it if I wanted to. And I keep it up so I can give the advice, but I don't. I prefer to send the inquirers into my team so that they can give the advice because they're spending all of their time on it. But that's another recurring income business because, people trust you. They trust you for the long term. And I think that's another part of the story that's worth sharing, that the lesson that I've learned is if you focus on a recurring income business, and wealth comes from assets that recur, business is one of those. It isn't selfish to do that because when you focus on recurring value, giving recurring value, you'll get a recurring income. And a recurring income is easy to keep. It's easy to maintain. And it's actually easy to sell if you ever wanted to sell it, because all an acquirer of a business wants is predictable profit. And they want to know that you don't have to be in it. Because if you, the owner now, has to be in it, they'll never be able to fully transition.
Yeah.
So you have to create the business as if you didn't need to work there and with a recurring income model. And that's all I've really done, is just looked at businesses that do that and look at things that do that. And over my life, I've just become skillful and now teaching that, how to build things that you can own, that can work without you, put money in your bank account while you're asleep. And there you go. And there are only 7 things you can do to do that, which is all part of my teaching. And we help people find the right combination of things, almost like, I don't know, I suppose a little bit like Lego. If you were to say, build me a house of Lego, and you had all the bricks, people would choose a different thing and it would look differently, but they get there. With enough time, they build a house of Lego. And that's what I do, is I teach people how to build a financial house, but in the colors and the combination of colors and things that they like for themselves, because I have the ability to see what they don't see. And over the years, I've developed a CAT scan brain to financially diagnose anybody, which is quite scary. And it sort of means I'm a financial GP. And then I call on the specialists when I need to do that.
Right.
So hence the guide, not the guru, the GP, not the specialist. But the CAT scan brain is definitely something that's quite a powerful thing. Difficult to teach that, but the IP is now distilled very nicely, which is the latest iteration of what I do, which is Wealth Builders. And that was born out of the 2008 crash.
Okay.
So in 2000, yeah.
So there's a lot to unpackage there.
Yeah.
One of the things that I do, so let's move on to sort of Wealth Builders, the business and your expertise that you have now. You mentioned about the 7 assets of wealth. Can you just briefly, I don't want you to give away too much of your IP, but could you briefly tell us what the 7 assets of wealth is?
Oh, I'll give it away. I'm not worried about that, but I will be brief though for the sake of the podcast. But the way to think about it is there are 7 things you can own that if you chose to own them in a certain way, would put money into your bank account while you sleep. That's the key. So most people have 3, but they don't use them very well. Okay. So the first 3, which almost everybody in this country has, is a home they live in, a pension from personal pension or company or whatever, and some money in the bank or the stock market, some money in a market. That's the 3 they have. And for the most part, 95% of the population hope that those 3 will work, but they don't. Because people live in houses that don't pay them any money. And why would they want to create a lodger? They want to live in the house, so they don't want to do that. But it's possible to use the equity in the home to create value. They have a pension that they delegate to a third party because they can't control it and they don't have time, because they're so busy trading time for money and paying quite a substantial amount in fees. And as a result, the money doesn't really give them more than a 4 or 5% net return in their life. So if you think about 4 or 5% and you want a decent income, you need 20 times or 25 times the value of that. So if you want, what would be a good income? 100 grand a year is a decent income, right? So you want 100 grand a year, you need 25 times that, so £2.5 million in a pension. The average person in the UK has less than 200. So they don't make it. And then they have money in the bank, which doesn't earn them much, or they have money in an ISA, which is the same problem as number two, which is all about trying to accumulate money instead of building cash flow. So the model is always about, I'll deal with this at the end. I'll get old and I'll downsize. I'll get old and I'll retire. I'll get old and I'll de-risk myself. But it's too late then. And in 2008 brought it really home, because people who had money in those places suddenly found 25 to 30% wiped off the value of their funds in a heartbeat. How do you recover from that?
Yeah.
You just can't recover from that. So that's why, and that was the catalyst for me, is like, I'm an IFA and I'm teaching people how to invest money and diversify and do it the best I can with the best knowledge I've got. This don't work anymore. It's not working. We need another model. Right, get the brain back in gear. What's the other model? Right, let's think about this. What are the other assets you've used that you built that make it work for you? Okay. Number 4, so 1, 2, 3, your home, your pension, your investments. Okay. Number 4 is property. So you own property for rental. Number 5, you own businesses with recurring income. Number 6, you create and monetize intellectual property. Number 7, you connect and collaborate with others and you share the value of other people's work. That's, in a nutshell, the 7 assets. Now, underpinning all of those 7, and I call each of those assets pillars, because the logo of Wealth Builders, just like the logo of Kingswood Law actually, was a foundation, a roof, and at that stage in the early days it was 5, but now it's 7. 7 individual, robust, sturdy pillars that if you've got 7 streams of income, if one of them goes a bit wobbly, you're financially okay. And that's what I encourage. I'm not saying you have to have 7. I'm not trying to overwhelm people. You need 7 streams of income. The more streams of income you have, the safer you are. But find one. Build one. And if you can do that, you can build 2. And then in the end, what tends to happen is, through my experience, people get to a place where they are financially secure, then they don't need the day job. And when they don't need the day job, they've got more time. And if they put more time into it, that's when you accelerate. Right. So it tends to be focus on 1 or 2 pillars until you reach security, and then accelerate by diversifying into independence. And if you can do that under guidance, which really means looking very hard at every asset, everything you've got in your life, everything you're doing, and try and find ways to maximize. And that's where the CAT scan comes in. So by looking at people's situations, we can say, click, 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 click. You can save from that. You can do that. You could change that. You could increase the value of that or reduce the cost of doing that. And the net long-term impact of that will be to do this. Now go ahead and do that. But you can't save your way to wealth. You've got to build those other assets. And if you think about property, business, intellectual property, and joint ventures, it's about involvement. It's about collaboration, connection, doing something, adding value, being part of the value. Whereas with your house and your pension and your investments, you're watching the value. I know you could improve your home, but no, we're not talking about that. Your home is, the value of your home is whatever the value of your home is. You can't really change that tomorrow. In a day, you can't change it. Whereas you could change your business in a day and add a new income stream, or you could find another property to buy and own and rent today that would lead you to another income stream. And that's all we do, is try and help people find the right combination that suits their personality, the amount of money they've got, the partnership they've got with a spouse or significant other, the way they like to communicate and collaborate with others, or if they don't and they want to be insular and love a spreadsheet. It can work in any combination of circumstances. The process is different, but the principles are the same. Build, own, control assets that give you cash flow, and let the cash flow so the money shows up. You don't have to.
Really interesting. So I'm thinking, I'm going through my checklist of the 7, and I'm going to ask a personal question because it's my podcast. I get the privilege to ask.
Yeah, you get free learning.
I get free education. So for me, the first 3 we've all got them. Number 4, property. So I've started investing in property. Number 5, business. I've started up a couple of businesses. They're moving towards reoccurring income. Well, they've got reoccurring income, but they're moving towards me not actually have to be in part. But I'm really fascinated about intellectual property. So JVs. So I'm actually trying to work through people with properties with JVing on sourcing deals.
Right.
But this intellectual property piece, I think, is an interesting one, which doesn't always get discussed when you're talking about assets.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you create your intellectual property? Was it courses? Is it? I know you've got the community, the Wealth Builders membership community you've got, but let's delve a little bit deeper into intellectual property and the role that it's done in your business.
Let's do that. So let's start by saying what intellectual property is. It's the value that other people want from the knowledge, experience that you have in your life that you can package and repurpose that will deliver value to somebody else who's willing to pay for it. And everybody's got it, but so few people mine it. If you think about it, if intellectual property is the value of what's in your brain, everybody's getting it now by way of being paid. Mm. So if somebody's in a job, their IP is being given away. Mm. Because your employer wants your IP and they trade that for money. Mm. And the easy way to measure that is to take any salary you can think of, divide it by 2, and that's the hourly rate in broad terms. Mm. So if somebody's on 50 grand, £25 an hour. Right. If someone's on 100 grand, £50 an hour. If someone's on £500,000, £250 an hour. So you can measure the IP, but you know when you've got it, because the higher your current value of hourly IP, it's more likely you're going to be able to convert that to IP somebody else wants. Right. So the natural tendency for people who recognize that is to say, hang on a minute, I'm on 100 grand a year, which is a decent income, in UK standards. So I must be worth more than 100 grand to somebody else. Because you're giving them a multiple because they're taking a risk, the employer. Yeah. What if I take that money or take that brain and repackage it? This is stage 1, by the way, of thinking about it, and do that work and deliver that value myself. Right. And that's how most people start businesses. Yeah. Somebody works for an accountant becomes an accountant. Somebody works for a law firm becomes a private practice lawyer, whatever it is, Somebody who's a heating engineer becomes a plumber, whatever it would be, there's a method. And because they see they want to create more of the value. The challenge with that, it's interestingly a sensible thought because it recognizes the bridge in value for IP, but it doesn't solve the problem because the IP doesn't come to them every month regularly. You still have to trade time for money. So the difference is, how do you do that? How do you turn your knowledge into something that someone will pay ongoing? And the way to do that is to package it. And the best form of packaging, everybody knows about with IP, is, things that are so hard for most people to get, which is writing books and writing songs, for example. And just think about the language of that for a moment. If you write a song or a really good book, and I know that's rare, so I'm not saying go write a song, write a really great bestseller. I'm not saying that. I'm saying not that, but just so you hear it though, the word you get when you get paid for that is royalty. Right. And just the sound of it is sexy, isn't it? Mm. I'm earning royalties today, and that's just great. But how you do it if you're a normal person like you and me is you take what you know, you work out what it is that you've delivered in the past. So before I wrote, so I've got 3 books and I've got a course, Wealth Builder Academy course. And basically it's everything that I've learned and everything that I know that can accelerate someone's wealth and put it into a course. But somebody else delivers the course.
Right.
So I don't deliver it. So I've got a really good guy called Chris Rodwell who's pulled out my IP. He just literally just, right, we've got to get this on paper, or we've got to get this on video. We've got to get this in, short books and ebooks and other things. How do we do that? And he helped me, and he pulled it all out of me. And as a result of that, we've now got a course. We've currently got, give or take, 300 people on the program right now, all paid £3,000, or give or take, that's the price now, to be involved in it. And they're on a journey to become financially free in 5 years. But where is my time in that? I don't deliver the course. Somebody else is delivering. I've got 6 coaches and they deliver the course. And that's the value of IP. Now, I'm not saying that IP is worth hundreds of millions, but it's worth a lot. And it's worth a lot to me. And also, it's allowed me to do my best work. And rather than deliver it one-to-one, which I still do, I have a number of people who want that one-to-one mentoring interaction, an acceleration, if you like, a fast track. Don't want to wait 5 years. I've got all the time in the world now, and I've got a decent sum of money. Okay, let's get you there in 2 or 3. And they'll pay for the fast track relationship, a bit like some people will turn left on an aeroplane and things like that. Everybody's different. And those who want to do that, I will deliver it with them. But for the most part, I can only do that to about 40, 50 people a year. The rest don't need me. They need a roadmap, a pathway, a way to follow that they can follow, that it will deliver the result they want. And that's what it does. That's IP. And it takes time to create it, because number one, you've got to create the credibility. But I would say to everybody, you've probably got more IP than you think. If you know somebody said, you're really great at that, or you've been commended or awarded, or people say, you think differently, or you're beginning to see that IP is there, that you can turn into value for somebody else. And you can start small. You can write a small ebook. You could create a small membership program. You could create a bigger membership program like I've done, or you can create a multi-1,000-pound membership program like other people have done. Lots of people do outstandingly well in IP. And given the use of technology these days, with so much very, very sophisticated technology available for dollars a month, nothing expensive at all, to be able to harness, capture it on your videos on courses. You can do videos with iPhones or other phones, with good cameras. There's so much good work you can do. And you can create a podcast. It doesn't cost much to create a podcast. It takes discipline and determination to do it and show up every week or every month or however often you do your podcast. But it doesn't cost a lot.
No, it doesn't.
You need a decent microphone, somebody to edit it probably, and a hosting platform, and then you're done.
It is. It really is. And a lot of these things, showing up is important, as you say. For my podcast, 3.5 years I've been doing it, and it's showing up. It's doing the interviews, doing the research. So right, I get that about IP. Before we go into SSAS, which is an area I want to touch on in a minute, what's your day-to-day activities? I'm intrigued. Like, what's a normal? Well, is anything normal in this pandemic era? But what is a normal day for Kevin?
What, just in terms of routine?
Yeah, like maybe morning routine. Maybe how many do you have meetings with clients? Do you have meetings with investors? Do you have coaching? You touched on that you do mentor people. So
yeah, okay. Now I get you. Okay, so with I'm an early starter. First thing I kind of do is really just reach into my emails to make sure what I've done. If there's anything I must do, check out my calendar. Then check out anything that guys have given me that I need to approve on Asana. Then that's me kind of done for the morning. As far as my job in the business, and I say it's a job, it's not really, because I'm unemployable, as I mentioned earlier on. But the role that I take within the Wealth Builder business is known as the visionary role. So I've got kind of 3 things to do. Is to is to find and make great connections who will serve the wealth builder community, to build and develop new ideas and concepts that will add more richness to the wealth builder community, and to get involved with people who need a fast track relationship. So, people who want to talk to me specifically, or people who want to be mentored by me specifically. So I do those three things, and then that's all I do. I don't do anything else. Because if the role of me and the role of being, because a lot of cheeky people, and I know you're not a cheeky person, but cheeky people do ask me this question. And it normally goes something like this. So Kevin, I can see you're not a spring chicken. They don't normally say that. But, if you've got multiple streams of recurring income, why are you showing up? Why are you still doing stuff every day? And my simple answer to that is because I bloody well love it.
Good. Yeah. Awesome.
So I'll continue to do it because my team let me do what I'm brilliant at, which is high-level creativity, high-level connectivity. And if I create and connect, that's sort of all I do. And if I can do that, it leaves me free to talk to great people like you on podcasts to spread the word about wealth or wealth builders. And I'm not worried about whether people resonate with me or not. I'm just who I am. But if it gives them an insight to go and do something, then that's a good outcome for me. And, if somebody gets an insight and they can thank you or thank me, that's great, because then it tells me the whole idea is working, because I think it needs to work, because still 95% of the population will live a life of compromise when they get older. And so many more people are working into their 70s, the state pensions going back and back and back, workplace pensions going back and back and back. And people will be working longer. And there's no reason to do that if you can do it in 5 years. Why would you not do that? Is my argument. Do it in 5 years. You can do it.
I'm so glad to hear a success story of someone who is doing what they want to do, what they're good at doing, and being able to have that freedom to be able to do that. So that is a true inspiration for me personally. So let's talk about SSAS. So this is an area that you are, I would say, an expert in. Tell us, because there are people that will be listening or watching that don't know what SSAS is. So why don't you just give us a sort of high level and how you help people with their SSAS?
Well, the first thing to say is just a preliminary, is whenever you go on a journey, invariably when you go on a journey somewhere nice, you probably need to learn a new language. Right? So I love France, so I can speak French. But if I go to Portugal, I don't speak Portuguese, but I know I want to learn one or two words just to feel like I'm trying. Now, I'm not saying do that, but I'm saying when you become committed to being financially independent, you will learn new words. And you have to learn them. We've used words today in this very nice exchange. We've learned the word asset. We've learned the word recurring. We've learned the word many things, SSAS, for example. So before saying what a SSAS is, I want to remind you what I said earlier on, that so many people rely on their pension. Everybody knows what a pension is. It's a place where you park money till you're old. Doesn't need to be. But most people do that. They park it. They hope the stock market works. They get to a retirement age, and then they hope it continues to work in their retirement. Yet 2008, 2020, and increasing volatility, we're going to see big swings in the stock market because that's happening. I'm not trying to predict. I'm not being a soothsayer. I'm just saying it's going to happen again. A SSAS, small self-administered scheme, is a bit of an awful mouthful, right? But it's got nothing to do with the armed forces, the SAS. It's got nothing to do with software as a service, SaaS. It's SSAS. And it's just this. It says, hey, instead of leaving somebody else in control of your pension, if you recognize that what it was just a giant bank account for most people, the biggest bank account they'll have, and you can take control of it and do what you want. And if you want to do the other pillars, you want to do property or business or IP or joint ventures, or indeed you want to do stock market, but you just want to do it cheaper, or you want to do it in a way you can build in risk mitigation techniques inside your pension. So you don't just go, it's up today or it's down tomorrow. When it's up, you can take money out of that and bank it and put it in something else. That doesn't work the same way, like bank it and buy gold or bank it and do anything. I'm not trying to give advice here, but there's just so many things you can do. What a SSAS does, and what I'm very powerfully a believer of, is that you create wealth yourself. You can't delegate your wealth. You have to build it. I'm not saying there are some tasks you can't delegate. Of course there are, but you don't delegate the building of your wealth. You must get involved and do it. And what a SSAS does is turns the pension from being run and owned by, let's say, Legal & General, who I worked for way back when, to being run and owned by you. Or in my case, my SSAS, run and owned by me. Not because I'm some financial guru and my background has got nothing to do with it, because we've taught thousands of people how to run. I don't mean to run it like administration, but how to make the decision about what goes inside their pension. It's just a vehicle to get you from A to B. But if you can use that vehicle to go faster, if you can use that vehicle to be safer, if you can use that vehicle to be cheaper long-term to help you get to where you want to get to, you'll have a bigger pension, a bigger retirement income, and a bigger legacy than if you leave it to the mercy of the stock market. And that's what I believe. And a lot of people believe it too. And that's why we've got a community. It's now 5,000 strong. Can you believe 5,000 people that I know, not personally, have converted their old pensions into new pensions and made their pension a part of their future, not a sad reflection of their past.
And that's the SSAS Alliance, isn't it, that you've got?
SSAS Alliance is that group. So, and that's a group I'm proud to be, part of. It was founded by somebody else, a great guy called Mark Stokes, who's a SSAS client, and he loved, can you believe this? He loved what he did with his SSAS so much, he wrote a book about it. It's like clients writing books. It's like, I'm supposed to be writing books. Now he's written 3 books about SSAS, and somebody else has written a book about SSAS. So people are getting excited. There's a whole movement created, and there's one fantastic lady who works in the program with us, a lady called Louise, and she's almost set up a group called Girls Just Want to Have Funds. It's like she's now saying, come on, we don't have to leave this to the financial service industry. We don't have to leave this to blokes. We can run our pension. And she's kind of leading a group of women who are being empowered enough to say, yes, I can do this too. It's not going to bed with the pensions manual. It's not trying to be a pensions expert. It's saying a pension's just a bank account. Can you run a bank account?
Yeah.
And then choose which pillars you want to invest in. And I'm excited about that. It's not something new. That's been going since the 70s, but it seems to have got a new lease of life. And, I discovered that after the credit crunch in 2008, when my own pension was in a SIP, and I couldn't change it because it was in the stock market. It's not anymore. But in fact, I've got 0 of my pension in the stock market. That stock market money's elsewhere. But I just see so many people wanting to do something to take control. And I think taking control is the point.
Awesome. Right. The last section is future endeavours. So what's the plan for the next 2, 5, 10 years for you?
50,000 people, isn't it? Really? I mean, that's
so. You actually mentioned that when on the previous presentation that you did about this 50,000 people, which I think if you get 50,000 people that are registered and have gone through your course, you need to hire out St James's Park and try and get those people.
I would do that because in the summer, I'm a mad Newcastle United football fan, so I'm always disappointed every season. But it would give me a big thrill if during the summer months, when they're quiet, and sometimes they allow the stadium to be used for kids and so on, so they can play games, so they can actually say, I played at St James's Park. I've never really explored the idea of hiring it out. I might need to be pushed along in my wheelchair there, but, I'm going to give it a damn good go.
Good. Fantastic. All right. So coming to the end of the podcast, I asked the same 6 questions to all of my guests. They're quickfire questions. They don't need quickfire answers. The first question is, what's the best decision that you made?
Oh, no doubt, is to build assets. Don't trade time for money.
What's the best piece of advice you were given?
The best piece of advice would be study economics, because you'd be good at it.
Awesome. Who helped you most in your career?
Well, this is a challenging one for me, because in my career, I would say my wife, because she's been the most supportive, because there wasn't a guide or a mentor to help me. So I'd encourage people to seek out somebody now, whoever it is, or to find a buddy. But my wife was so supportive, it's untrue.
Just on that, because you said earlier on that you didn't have guides, mentors, books. So how did you just learn from doing?
Yeah. Thinking and doing, and just being smart enough to think, right, what creates income automatically?
Right.
Okay, property does, business does. I didn't have IP then, so I didn't even know what it was. Didn't think that I would qualify to have it, because I was thinking, not doing, and not creating credibility or authority. But I would say, here's a challenge, actually, and I'd love for you or any of your listeners to pick me up on it. I'm looking for asset number 8. Okay. I'd love for there to be 8, right? Because 8 is such a beautiful symbol of infinity.
Yeah.
And, I've got in my mind an inkling of what number 8 might be in the future. But I'll keep that one dry, because if somebody gives me number 8, I'll send them a case of champagne to thank them and ask them if I can use that and build the IP around it, because I can't find it. I can't think of number 8.
Oh, let me have a think about it. I'll see what, and I'll see if any of the audience come back with anything.
By the way, it's got to be something that puts money in your bank account while you sleep automatically. So somebody's going to say, he's forgotten about gold or cryptocurrency. No, I haven't, because crypto doesn't put money in your bank account. Not automatically is an income stream. It might give you gains or it might give you losses, as we've seen in recent weeks. Yeah. And similarly with gold, you can buy gold. It's a hedge. There's no automatic income stream, nor is there in paintings, There's no automatic income stream from it. And the stock market is the stock market, whether you're trading options, it's still the stock market. So, and we've already got that one as an asset.
Okay. Do you have any regrets?
Not finding a mentor. I wish I'd found one. I really do wish I had. I'd say it was a lonely journey. And I'd say the regret I have is not building a community or being part of a community. I wish there was one, because I think the energy that comes from like-minded people, and what's been so wonderful to me is inside the Wealth Builder community now, just the number of people helping each other, and the sharing and that doesn't happen in employment life. Yeah. People don't do that. They protect their own interests, but what I found true in certainly the wealth community, because we ask people to sign up to a set of values, and one of those values is being willing to share with others. Almost, if you need help, reach out in front of you and get help. And if somebody asks for help, or you see somebody needs help, reach behind you and offer help. And so it's that sort of double vision of extended hand in front and behind is a really powerful one in the Wealth Builder community that we like. But I just honestly wish I'd had that sense of community when I was building, because it would have made life more enjoyable in terms of the thinking. I didn't have a sounding board even. Yeah. If I'd had that would have been helpful.
Awesome. What are you most proud of?
I'm proudest, no doubt at all, about the Wealth Builder community, and thanking Chris for helping me create that IP, because on my own, I wouldn't have done it.
What does legacy mean to you?
What legacy means is giving wisdom and a sense of stewardship, not a sense of expectation that, dad dies, leaves money, woo woo, let's spend the money. It's dad's died, but he's written a family charter. And in the charter, there's an expectation that you're learning the wisdom and you're replenishing that bank account, which is rich and fruitful for you to take, but but you must give back so the next generation of Whelans can continue that, and then the next generation to do that. And to do one thing once a year on the anniversary of my birthday is toast the old bugger and say thanks. And make sure my birthday is in February, so that's good because it'd be in season when the football's on, right? So, cheer me on. That's what I want.
It's interesting you say that. How many generations do you think of Whelans that you're supporting? This isn't a question I usually ask, but I'm just interested because you said about giving it to your children and they build on from there. How many sort of, is it infinite? Do you think it's just that
infinite
you will build for?
Yeah, I think my job as the pioneer is to start the journey.
Right.
Their job is to make it better for the next generation, and their job is to make it better for the next generation, and their job is to. And I want that to be a message that gets crafted and transferred, but built with a set of rules that are flexible enough to accommodate changes that I won't see.
Exactly.
And to allow them to say, well, back in the old days when Dad created that, that was that, but we're changing that rule for the better to do this. Yeah. And I don't know anybody who's creating family charters, but it's something that I'm doing because I'm the pioneer. But like anything, a pioneer is the start. And I think I'm trying to inspire a new breed of wealth pioneers. So they create the wealth for their families and then they give them the wisdom to carry on.
Awesome. All right. Lastly, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
Wealthbuilders.co.uk, easy. Or just look for this old face somewhere on LinkedIn or Facebook and say hello. And look, anybody who reaches out to me, I'll give them something back in value. Might not have personal time, but I'll certainly send free resources, free books. There's a Facebook group people can join for free. We give so generously for free because we want people to realize that this is a community that means to help. It's not just me getting a means to money. Genuinely want to help anybody who's committed to getting out of trading time for money in a job, in a business, something that's not serving them now. And no disrespect to anybody in a job. I understand that, but you can't get wealthy in a job.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Enjoyed listening to your questions and hopefully contributing something that's interesting to somebody else.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.